All right, so today we're going to talk about the cycle of substance abuse. This is a model that can be used in outpatient and inpatient therapy treatment. It can also just be used for a general analogy or metaphor into how substance abuse affects both your cognition and your bodily function through the use of glasses of water. This has been used in the past. I have used it with adolescents in an inpatient psych hospital and shown efficacy. I've used it in outpatient treatment with young adults, middle adults, and older adults of all various ethnicities and cultural backgrounds. So this is something that has really been broken down to a 7th grade level education to help clients understand how to understand the cycle of substance abuse. So we're going to go through it right now. So to start off, let's think of our bodies and our minds as a glass of water. And every single person who has ever been born starts life with half a glass of water. And this is what we would refer to as your healthy level of functioning. It's kind of where you feel like yourself. So if I might wake up and be like, oh, I feel like me today, I'm just going to go about my day or whatever. Clients typically like to use the word normal, even though we don't use that in our field. It's good to use it for them because they may connect to that better. So with the half a glass, this is the healthy, the normal level of brain functioning and bodily functioning. Everything's going on normally. So every single person who has ever been born has some kind of glass that looks like that. Now, due to genetic abnormalities and different things like that, sure, their glasses of water, yours compared to mine, may look a little bit different, higher, lower, it doesn't really matter. But the point is that every single person has a glass that is a healthy level, a normal level, or a level of functioning that their body can sustain and work through. Now, as we go through life and we experience different things, sometimes there are tragedies that happen, deaths, loss of friends, drop out of school maybe. There are different traumas, experiences that we can go through that cause our glass to go emptier or fuller as we experience life. But for the sake of this model, let's say that somehow stuff happened and now your body is in a place where you feel like crap. You feel depressed, you feel angry, stressed out, sad. All of those different negative emotions, for the sake of this discussion, have happened throughout your life, and you're over here now with this empty glass of water. It could be empty or it could be almost empty. The point is that whenever a client's here, they feel bad. They use maybe words like they feel like crap, they don't feel good, they hate everything, they're angry, they're this, they're that. They're in a place where their body is at a lower level of functioning, and what was healthy and normal has gone to unhealthy and not sustainable. And when we look at these glasses, think of the water in terms of the brain chemicals dopamine and serotonin. That's the neurological side of it, but those are those hormones that help us regulate emotion, feel good, and kind of go through life as normal. So when they're over here, they don't have as much of those brain chemicals, those hormones that help regulate their mood and regulate their lives. And it may be that someone suggested, hey, try this, it'll help you feel better, or you'll feel good, or it'll numb the pain kind of thing. They'll introduce a substance to them. So they're over here and they use. Now when they use, they're going to go over here to this glass. And the way that the drugs work on the reward system and with dopamine, serotonin, and some other neurotransmitters, again, those are just the names, but the way it works with the brain chemistry is that the substance, most of them cause the glass to become full, or in some cases, overflowing. Your brain has a lot of those chemicals going on in it that just cause that experience of being high, being numb, kind of just in a place that's not here. So when the brain's over here, it's got a lot of those chemicals going on, but when the body and the brain were forming, it was formed for this level. This is what the brain was designed to be, to sustain itself at and to work on. So when it's in these two places, these are kind of the out of balance places. Now, what the brain's going to do, and this could be a question that you'd want to throw to your group members, to your class, or whatever, is that the brain cannot sustain itself here. It cannot stay at this level of functioning. It's too much. It has way too many of these chemicals going on that it doesn't need them. So it begins to dump some of it out. You might have been. So while it's dumping the chemical out, I usually like to ask, so where do you think the brain is going to stop? How much is it going to empty the glass before it's done? And play dumb with this one. Because 9 out of 10 times I get the answer, oh, it's going to stop back at the healthy level. And I'm like, right, that makes sense because it's got too much here. You gave it way too much. So it's just going to go back to what it was designed for. And everyone's like, yeah. And I'm like, yeah, that's really good. Actually, that's not the case. What happens is because the brain had been here, if somebody had going through some trauma or some kind of experience and they had been depressed for a significant amount of time, the brain does a small adaptation to where it stays at this level of functioning for an extended period of time. Thus, when it starts emptying its glass, it doesn't know when to stop. It definitely doesn't stop here. The research shows that you go back here. It goes back to the empty glass. The brain just dumps everything back out because once they come out of that high, they're going to go back to, usually, they'll go back to the unpleasant emotions and experience that they went through. And so, coming out of high. And I usually like to give my group members a little bit of time to let that sink in because a lot of people, not everybody, but a lot of people tend to think that it just stops here because that's what they want and that's just what they think happens. But really it goes back to where they were to begin with. And so when they're back here, again, nobody likes to be in this place in their life. So they're going to use, possibly, and right there, between these two glasses, you have your cycle of substance abuse. Now this can persist and take place for as long as the person keeps those habits and those behaviors in their lives. I've seen people break this cycle and I've seen people that never break out of the cycle. It's going to depend on what treatment they get and how motivated they are in their treatment and what stage of change that they're at. But this right here can be powerful with your group members or with your students because it just shows how the body and the brain cycle between being high and numbed out and feeling depressed, angry, anxious, stressed out, and all that other stuff. And because usually, culturally, especially in this culture, there's the need for immediate gratification by some philosophies. So they want to feel better immediately right here. Nobody wants to stay here, so they get high and they're back here. And then it goes away and they do it again. So what agencies and what lectures and all that stuff try to do is to break this chain. And this is where you can ask your students or ask your group, how do you break this cycle? Because this can persist until the person's body gives out because chemicals that were not meant for our bodies are constantly being cycled in and out of their minds and in and out of their bodies, and it wreaks havoc depending on how many years of use there is, how much use there is. There's a lot of stuff that's going on. And if you think about tolerance with some substances, they may need to use more. Say it's something like heroin, you may need to use more to get back to here, and then you have the risk of overdose. So there's a lot going on here that I'm not going to get into, but just think biologically and cognitively, you're not designed to sustain this kind of cycle. So you ask, what is there to do? Now with an agency, you would learn coping skills and you would learn treatments, and that would be what breaks the cycle here. When you implement a coping skill, your treatment plan goals, all that stuff like that, you're using things that are designed, we're going to use coping skills for this example. So if you use coping skills to break this chain, what you're doing is you're getting back to this glass, the healthy or the starting level of functioning, but it's going to be something that takes time, as we know, because coping skills do not give immediate gratification and they're not immediate success. It's a habit and it's a practice that you have to work toward every single day. So if somebody practices something like mindfulness, deep breathing, muscle relaxation, the ABC model, for every time that they practice one coping skill the way it was taught for a full period of time, not a half try and not a, I'm going to practice this part of this technique. They have to do it regularly and consistently. You're going to add a little bit of water back into your glass. So if somebody's practicing 3 coping skills 3 different times a day, they're going to add a little bit of water. So depending on how much this person practices and how motivated they are with their coping skills and with their treatment goals or whatever, this process can take, now again, it's a case-by-case situation and it depends on the trauma and the experiences. But let's say, for an example's sake, it could take 3 to 12 months. Again, we're leaving a wide range because some people go through some really significant traumas and they've built up a lot of years where they've been using substances. Point is that in this time frame, if they're practicing their coping skills regularly and if they're doing them the way they were taught, and even if they personalize them so that they help connect to it better, they'll get back to this glass here. Because again, it's adding water each time, water. It's adding those the hormones at a sustainable level, and it's implementing a practice and a habit that breaks those old habits where they just cycle. So they can absolutely get back to this healthy, this normal level of functioning, both cognitively and body-wise, if they're doing, exercise and all that, and healthy dieting. Their body and their mind can get back to this glass, and it can be sustained here so long as they continue to practice those coping skills and those techniques that they learned through breaking the cycle of substance abuse. Now, there are going to be, with this model, depending on who you do with, students or with clients, there are a lot of times that there are questions thrown in here and things that they don't understand, and I couldn't possibly think of all the questions and comments that you could get, but just kind of recognize that the goal of this model is to liken, again, the mind and the body to glasses of water. Where it starts, where you can end up with trauma and negative experiences, and what happens when you use a substance. Keep in mind, this includes medications, because some medications that are prescribed are legal, but they have the same effect. The medications can sometimes titrate or slowly level off to where they get over here, but unless the person has something like schizophrenia or something, not all medications are supposed to be prescribed for life. Now, I'm not a medical doctor, if that's just what some of the research shows, and I'll link research articles to help back this up so I'm not lying. So, even with medications, clients or students may throw stuff at you to throw the model off, and it can most times answer the questions if you just remember that there's a cycle between low and high, usually, and there's a middle area to get back to through coping skills, through even medication can help you get there, but there's a balance to everything, and finding out what works for the individual and how and why it works. It doesn't matter if it's the dopamine and serotonin stuff. What matters is that they understand that, oh, my body has this level that it's designed for, and right now I'm kind of bouncing around all over the place, and I need to find a way to get back to something that's more balanced. So I think that's it. So I actually had a question. What about something like a lapse or a relapse in terms of substance abuse? The thing with that is that, let's say a person's been working with their treatment plan, or they've been working toward their goal, and they're slowly building their way back to this glass. They're not quite there, but they're certainly not an empty glass or an almost empty glass. They're somewhere in the middle between here. I don't have enough glasses to draw to really give an analogy to that. If a lapse or a relapse happens, it's not going to be detrimental. They'll go back to here and they'll cycle back out, but depending on how committed they are to their goals and to their recovery or whatever it is, it won't, again, it depends, it's a case-by-case thing. It won't harm things too much because the brain is going to adapt depending on how much time. If they spent 3 months, let's say that they need 12 months to really get back to this glass, but for the past 3 months they've been actively working on their recovery and toward their coping skills, they're going to have a glass somewhere in the middle. Again, the brain is fairly good at adapting to how it functions, and depending on the length of time that it's spent on, let's say that they have a glass somewhere between these two, we'll say right here. And let's say they have a lapse, so they move back to this glass. They're high, they're doing their thing, they come out of it, they're going to go back to this glass because chances are their brain is starting to adapt to that level of functioning through the coping skills and just through the time of sobriety and the practices that they've been having. It is a possibility that they go back to the empty glass or nearly empty glass, but again, it'll be a much quicker process. If they're committed to their goals, it'll be a much quicker process to move back up as opposed to staying here and having to start from square one. This model's not about making your clients feel bad or saying that if they screw up, they're gonna be stuck forever in here. It's just to show how the body and the mind kind of work with a substance and how it influences their functioning. So, there we go.